a part of our garden.
Yep, this is Ashley with Hectic Homestead. Thanks for joining us. We're going to show you our garden. This is our first video. I have my boys here. This is Nigel and Wesley
that knows how to get the
Corinne.
balloon.
She's my daughter, 2 years, 2.5. And the boys are 4. Can you say hi?
Hi.
And we can't forget our other boy out there. Huxley.
And I want to say a house.
Big, huge deck, which leads to our garden, which is expanding ever more. We have a fence up here to keep the chickens out, which doesn't always work when the dog opens the gate and the children open the gate. I am in the middle of getting everything switched over for the fall. I have some crops growing right now, and everything has to be covered with the netting to protect it for when the chickens get in here. And we also have a lovely chipmunk or squirrel or something that's coming in here and destroying all of my beautiful work. So in here we have cold weather crops growing, our lettuces and beets and radishes. So here's one of our crazy chickens. That's Hey Hey. She's crazy.
I want to talk to them now.
What did you want to say? So, as I was saying before, that we do mostly square foot gardening. So square foot gardening is all about planting things as close together as they will go and still getting high yield out of food, out of growing gardening.
Yeah, that's how you do it.
So anyway, in here, like I said, we have radishes here, carrots growing, spinach, beets and parsley that I have not yet pulled out. Most everything in here is frost hardy, so it will live through some of the winter. And I do have some plastic covering to put over this when time comes.
Mommy, I'll tell you.
So a few things I still have that I have not pulled out yet are my peppers. They obviously will not live through a frost, but we haven't had a hard frost here yet, so I'm...
Mommy, look at them. They're tiny.
Yep, they will grow, though. See, we even have flowers coming in.
And there's a big one.
Yeah, that one will get bigger. So eventually, when the frost comes and kills that, I will take it out. But for now, we're going to let it keep going because we still have a few more weeks left. So, as I was saying before, we have all of these nettings on the beds that I have little seedlings in, because we have a chipmunk or a squirrel or something that's been coming in here and destroying all of my work for here. I had all this stuff with some organic fertilizer in it mixed into the soil to break down over the winter time, and then put mulch on it, which I have unfinished compost. But this squirrel or chipmunk has decided that he's going to destroy all of my work. I had it down over here too, and he's made a mess. Anyway, I still have some of my tomatoes up that are about ready to be pulled, needing to be pulled out. So I haven't pulled out my zinnias yet because they are still beautiful and I am not ready to yank them. And they'll keep producing flowers until we get a frost and it kills them. They do have some sort of mildew growing on the leaves here, but usually when you take them out to put them in pots, you pull the leaves off, so they can't see that anyway. But I definitely do need to get rid of those and destroy them, because the powdery mildew can actually stay in the soil over the winter and then affect the plants for the next year. And it actually killed our pumpkin and our cucumber plants and a lot of our zucchini and squash, summer squash. So anyway, as I was saying, I have these 3 beds here that I did vertical gardening on in the back, and next season I think we may expand this a little bit more. Over here I have more of my herbs that I'm keeping in for the fall and the winter time. I have chives here. They'll stay hopefully over the winter. My rosemary, the parsley will be picked out eventually, but it's still going fine now. And we did have a lot of swallowtail caterpillars in here. I don't see many here now, but they were all over this plant, and I did not pick them out because they are beautiful. And then over here we have all of my broccoli, which is pretty much taking up this whole section. This is a 4x8 square foot that we got at Costco, and it's a 1 foot deep, and it's great. We love it. It's very easy. You can do all different types of configurations with it. You can make it 2 separate 4x4 beds. You can add on to it, make it bigger. I did have some people tell me and suggest to put rebar in the middle here because it gets pretty heavy when you only have dirt in there and there's no divider in it. But anyway, on that side I have broccoli, which I'm not 100% sure I'll grow much more of because it's a real pain in the butt to grow. It gets huge. It gets attacked by cabbage flies, cabbage moths, and that's why I originally had started with the nesting. Oh, we have a visitor. This is Gertie. She's one of our many chickens, and I don't know how she got in, but she follows me around everywhere I go. So we're going to put Gertie back out here. You stay over there, Gertie. Anyway, so again, like I said, broccoli takes up a lot of space and you don't really get much out of it. These heads are not nearly as big as what they are when you buy them in the store. And like I said, they are taking up a lot of space. I already cut the main head off of this, and then it has little broccoli floret things that come off the side. So when you buy broccoli crowns in the grocery store, that's the big one that you see here. And then all these little ones that come off are broccoli florets. And that's why they're smaller. So there's another one down there. But these I planted a long time ago. They take forever to grow. I started them indoors because they will not germinate when they are started out here. They'll go to seed, which means that the broccoli turns into a flower and then you can't eat it. You can still eat the leaves though. They're edible. But we haven't really ventured that far into anything yet. A lot of people use them for like juicing or whatnot. Anyway, and then over here I have a lot of salad stuff. I have like a salad bowl mix, New Zealand spinach, another salad bowl mix, arugula, those are carrots. I have beets, onions, all that sort of stuff. Over the winter I plan to put a plastic tarp over this. So I'm going to try to make like sort of like a floating row cover greenhouse sort of thing to see how that works. I did get a greenhouse off of Facebook Marketplace, which is amazing. We haven't really figured out where we're going to put it yet. I was planning on possibly putting it over here on top of this one, because apparently if you have 2 layers of insulation, so if you do one plastic sheeting layer over the PVC piping and that on top, I read that it can actually stay alive over the winter time. So we'll see. It might not even be necessary because we are in zone 6B here, kind of 7A, 6B, but it's always colder here than it is anywhere else. Like where we live, it says, if you look on the like Weather Channel app, it'll say it's 56 degrees outside, but I have multiple thermometers, digital thermometers, and they all will usually be about 5 degrees cooler than that. So we have to be careful with when they're calling for frost and whatnot because of that. Anyway, over here, this is not permanent. I was just kind of using up some of the space before we add more beds next season. But this is our potato plant. No, potatoes are really easy to grow, and they're especially easy to grow when you put them in containers like this, because if you do, you can just dump out the containers and then pick you use like a tarp and you just dump everything out onto a tarp, and then you can pick the potatoes out. And it looks like Mr. Chipmunk has been digging in here too. Anyway, potatoes, they probably planted them a little bit too late, but I was going to put them in the greenhouse if we have issues, because hopefully that'll keep them from freezing. But they can also withstand a light freeze, or a light frost. My rest of my tomato plants, they're looking pretty sad, but they have a lot of green, a lot of green tomatoes on them. These are actually, I did something over here when I was growing these tomatoes. I didn't realize this is my second season technically gardening. I started in the spring when we moved here onto this lovely property that we have, and that was my first official real garden, and so I'm doing the fall garden now. But anyway, when I started, I didn't realize how big the tomatoes get, so I put the tomatoes in and they got really tall because I did something where you take off the suckers. So like, for example, right here where you have this Y in the tomato, you pull this off here, and that prevents a bunch of growth from happening in the tomato from getting really bushy, and it makes it grow really tall. So my tomatoes were about 9 feet tall, and I decided to chop the tops off of them and propagate them. So put them in some water, let the roots grow, and then I put them in these little tubs, and then they just took off, and I had to chop the tops off of these about 4 weeks ago because they got so tall. So anyway, that is, and then sugar snap peas, which I'm letting these are pretty good, but I'm gonna let some of these dry out on the vine here so I can get some seeds out of them, because I ran out of seeds. But so this is what they look like when they grow. They start off as this flower here, and then they grow into this. And this will get real big. Next year, I have all my beds, more beds over here that I want to fill up eventually. But it's a lot of work and it's expensive. So we're going to put a big thing here and probably put an archway between the two beds going through here. And then I wanted to also put some blueberry bushes here. I'm going to get rid of all this trash. Excuse how dumpy it looks. This is Huxley. He is our 2-year-old Bernese Mountain Dog mix. He's a good boy. He's very needy. He loves to follow me around everywhere I go. So real quick, I'll show you guys the rest of the backyard. And that'll be our first visit when I give you the small tour. So obviously the kids are here. We have well water here, so I haven't really ventured into the whole retaining rainwater, because I figured it kind of is the same sort of thing that we do. Here is where I possibly plan on doing some more flower garden next year, because this is a south facing portion of our house, so it gets a lot of good light, but it wasn't on flat surface. And it wasn't that convenient to get to, because my husband just finished putting those stairs in after we finished the garden. So I didn't know the stairs were going to be there. When we moved in, there was only one set of exit off of this porch, and to be able to get out into the yard easier, he built that. So anyway, back here is where our chickens are. They free range during the day, so you see them out and about. We have quite a crazy setup over here because my chickens are brutal. The original one's Gertie, here she comes again, and the other 5 that look like her actually killed a couple of new chickens, because I had them all in here, but it had another section to it where they would just be out in this under part in the morning, and it was not enough space for them, because I'm sorry, but I'm not waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning to let my chickens out. So they all kind of are safely in this like enclosed run area. I have a bunch that sleep in here. The original ones do. I have some babies that are in this little makeshift home for now. They probably don't need to be on the heater anymore, but I have it here just for them anyway. This is where the babies were. I had them locked up in here for a little while because they couldn't really free range. And then this is a big coop. I have a lot of them in here. I had a couple hens that went broody, which means that they want to lay. That they want to be mamas. So they stop laying and they sit in a coop and either do it until you break them, which I tried to do by putting them in a dog cage for 5 to 7 days. That didn't work, so I ended up having to get baby chicks for her. So these bigger ones here are them. This guy right here, actually that's one of the mamas, and she's a bantam, which is a small chicken, so she actually is bigger than, or smaller than the babies. And it looks like I have one escapee. I typically find somebody wandering out here that shouldn't be out here until they free range for a little while and realize that they shouldn't be out here. So anyway, I just picked her up and tossed her back over. She can fly from here. And I also have our compost piles back here. I have one that is where it's been going. I stopped putting stuff in it in the beginning of the summer, I believe, or maybe it was the middle of the summer. And that's kind of being broken down. I put a lot of the bedding in it and chicken poop and whatnot in there. I try to do table scraps, but then you have ones like Gertie who comes over here and just help themselves to whatever they feel like. So they will jump up here and pick at it, and honestly I just gave up because I could put a top on it, but I actually think it kind of helps aerate it. So anyway, we try to put as much in there as we can, and then I obviously use that to put back into the garden, so it all goes around. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed our first video here at Hectic Homestead, and I'm sure you can figure out why we call it that, because of these 3 little munchkins. I say bye?
Bye. Hello. Bye-bye. Hello. Can I go?
Bye. And Nazar, you want to say bye?
Bye-bye. I want to say bye, Dad. Bye.
All right. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed our first video. Don't forget to subscribe, as they say.